Okay, let's get started. Firstly, I want to say good afternoon and thank you everybody for joining us on today's webinar. I'm lucky enough to be hosting George and Aaron from Accountants GPS. Accountants GPS was established to support the accounting profession and the SMSF industry by developing the first digital platform of its kind in Australia for self-managed super funds. In just a few minutes, the platform can produce a detailed strategic assessment of an SMSF's financial, compliance, and wealth status via the integration of the platform's factual SMSF Check-Up Report. To use this report, an accountant doesn't have to be a licensed accountant at all. So before I hand you over to George, let's cover just a few housekeeping items. Today's session will be recorded, so if you miss anything or you need to leave early, the recording will also be available to you and on our YouTube channel. The Q&A panel will be open, so please feel free to submit any questions you have, and these will be answered by Aaron or George from the Accountants GPS team. So, George, I'll pass it over to you to get started.
Thank you, Lily. Thank you very much. Thank you, BGL, for the opportunity to present this afternoon. Aaron Williamson, our head of product, and myself will be conducting the presentation. It'll be a bit of a tag team. What I'll do as a starting point, I think, is we'll give you a bit of background on ourselves, and we'll get stuck straight into the presentation and the demo. So, Aaron, would you like to just kick off the proceedings, please?
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. I'm Aaron Williamson. I'm head of product for Accountants GPS. And I've been working with the organisation since it pretty much began about 5 years ago. I am responsible for the design and overseeing the development of all of our technical applications. I have a background in financial planning as well as a background in law, and we'll be running the demonstration part of the presentation today. Thanks, George.
Terrific. Thanks, Aaron. And George Haramis, I'm the Chief Executive and co-founder of Accountants GPS and Money GPS, two Australian fintechs. My background is that I've been in financial services for a long time, 30 odd years. And for most of that time, I've been managing large national advice businesses for the institutions and the banks, but left corporate land and started my own boutique AFSL. And during that process, really got to know accounting firms quite well, given that we had 47 accounting practices working with our AFSL. 35 of those practices were licensed for SMSF purposes. So we got to know really well what accountants go through in terms of both the compliance and risk aspect of dealing with SMSFs, but also from an advice perspective. And that gave us some really good background and expertise in developing the Accountants GPS offering, which we'll show you today. Okay, now what I'm going to do is that I'll share my screen and run through a few slides, a bit of background on the business and the service. Aaron will run through a demonstration. We'll come back to a few slides. If you've got any questions, please feel free to use the chat functionality, and we'll try and answer as many of those questions as we can as we're going through the presentation. So let me just share my screen. So hopefully you can all see that now. Terrific. This will keep the lawyers happy. We have the disclaimer up and running. All right, let's move on to the formal part of the presentation. Look, just by way of background, if you can just look at the sort of the middle and the right side of the screen, we're an Australian fintech. All our work is done onshore, and our expertise is in building very, very good technology that is used by individuals and businesses such as accounting practices. The Money GPS side of the business, which I'll talk about much later in the presentation, is our digital advice business. We offer client-led digital advice services for clients of accounting firms, advice businesses, and now employers. If we move to the right side of that screen, Accountants GPS. Accountants GPS was established once we had formed the basis of the technology for Money GPS. And the reason why we did that is because when I worked with those accounting practices, those 40-odd accounting practices a little while ago, I knew that, for those firms that deal in SMSFs, it's an important part of their business. The challenge with those firms is that, they're focusing on compliance work more than ever these days. And to look behind the numbers and to assess a fund's situation becomes quite hard. Now, we've done that through BGL Simple Fund 360. It was the first administrator that we worked with, thanks to Ron and the team. We were able to do that a little while ago. He was quite enthusiastic for us to get this up and running. Recently, we've worked with Class as well. So now we're working with the two largest administrators. Today, it's the largest administrator in providing you with the Accountants GPS service. So let's look at the current state of play with the accounting profession. The profession is focused on compliance-related activities, as I mentioned before, working with SMSFs, SMEs, and individuals. The regulatory environment is really not that great. It's not conducive to accountants in offering any type of personal, financial, or product advice. You need a license. And for most accountants, it becomes, quite hard to have both a license in dealing with SMSF matters or personal financial matters, as well as running an accounting practice. It's really a no-win situation from my perspective. And having worked with 35 practices who were licensed under SMSF purposes, I saw the good work they did, but that part of the SMSF industry is really falling away. Not many practices these days have an SMSF license. So how do they give advice to SMSFs without needing a license? So the requirement from all clients is that they want some form of personal guidance and advice from their accountant as their number one trusted advisor. They would prefer that. That's the service that they'd like you to provide. The challenge in looking behind the numbers, whether it's for an SMSF or an individual person, is delivering advice solutions. The opportunity for the accountants, therefore, is that the market at the moment, the SMSF market, is close to $1 trillion. It's 25% of the total superannuation assets in this country. So accountants are in a really, really good position to help their clients. It's a challenge to deliver a service without having a license, given the way the SMSF licensing regime has fallen away. So what can we do about it? And that's what Accountants GPS is really all about. It's about helping the accountant provide some value add to their SMSF trustee and member clients through the SMSF Check-Up Report and Accountants GPS. So what we've done is developed a digital analysis of an SMSF that we can run in less than 5 minutes. It's called an SMSF Check-Up Report. It's the first of its kind in Australia, never been done before. Now, one of the critical aspects of the service is that it is factual in nature. The report that Aaron will show you today, a demonstration of the platform, will produce a document that is factual. Therefore, you can sit down with your trustee and member clients and run through the report and not need a license because it's not advice, it's factual information. The focus is to help you deliver strategic advice and guidance that will lead to better financial and compliance outcomes. I know that having chatted to a number of accounting firms that work with us, the initial, query or hesitancy in working with us was, how long is this going to take to implement, George? How much time is it going to take up in my practice? What's the cost and so on? I can tell you that implementation is minimal in terms of time and cost. We'll take you through that process today. There is quite a comprehensive excuse me, I was about to sneeze, and that's not going to happen now. So there's a fairly comprehensive onboarding and support program put in place. We have specialists that work in our business, salaried staff, that help the accounting firm and their staff on board, provide the support program, also provide a range of communications to launch the program as part of your normal program that you offer your SMSF clients. The end result is that it does enhance the relationship between the client and the accountant because it improves client satisfaction in the work that the accountant's delivering. It saves you time. It builds on that trusted advisor status, and therefore it builds on the standing of the accountant with the clients as well as delivering a commercial benefit, i.e. in terms of additional revenue and the value of your SMSF business. Now, in terms of the report itself, as you'll see Aaron demonstrate today, we cover all the key aspects of a report from a wealth creation and compliance perspective. So we will look at the health of the fund, we'll look at any gaps, and we'll identify those gaps so that the accountant and the advisor, if you're working with a financial planner, can sit down with a client and work through these areas in a very methodical way, providing strategic guidance and advice if someone's licensed in a way that allows the accountant to do that without themselves having a license. You can see there some of the risk management framework items that we've listed. We've worked with auditors who've looked at the report, quite happy with the way the report is structured. It helps them in their role in reviewing the fund itself. Now, in terms of the fund, when we identify the gaps, effectively it qualifies the fund in a range of areas where it needs specific advice, whether that's provided by the accountant if they're licensed, or an external specialist. You may be working with an external advisor. That's already done for you with the report being prepared. And as we'll see when we run through the platform, there are a range of ancillary services that are part of accountantsGPS, which you can use, which includes advice. You're not obliged to use them if you've got your own providers. Importantly, as I said, you don't need a license to use this report because it's factual in nature, and there's a significant amount of onboarding, initial onboarding and ongoing support that the accountant can leverage to make sure the service is a success. So I think at that point, Aaron, I'll stop sharing, and if you can start demonstrating the platform and the report, that'll be terrific.
Oh, fantastic. All right, thanks, George. Let me grab the platform up and just confirm you can see that. All right.
Yep.
Perfect.
Sure can.
All right, so today I'll start actually by using an existing account that's signed up and has information already connected, just to walk everybody through creating a report and each of the pages of the analysis on the report so that you can get a good understanding of the product itself. Then at the end, I'll do a little bit of a backflip and I'll create an account to show the onboarding process and how you actually connect to BGL, Simple Fund 360, so that all of your fund data can come through. So here you can see I'm already logged into a test account. Very straightforward. We have the one digital product, which is the checkup report. We hit view list, and if you've already connected your BGL Simple Fund 360 account, then all of your funds should come through here. You can use the search function to look up different properties of that fund that you might be more familiar with, particularly if you've got hundreds of funds in there and it's a little bit hard to sift through. We also use a traffic light system over here so that you can quickly determine whether a report is outstanding or whether it's been completed within the financial year. So if I select this BGL training fund, I can see in here some basic details. I've got fund members with their details and the fund details, and also any activity that's been taken place on this platform. So you can see here, I have already created a report with this fund. Any reports that you've done in the past will appear here. There's also some functionality that's worth calling out. The way that we manage the platform is that different levels of subscriptions essentially have a number of reports they can run each month or each year, but included in each of those credits, we also allow you, the user, to rerun the report another 2 times for free. You'll see in a minute the reason for that, but it's so that you can work with the client to change certain things based on findings of the analysis, go back, update the information, rerun it, and you can see the health of the fund improving. We think that a few edits each time period is probably sufficient. You can also go back and view any report, responses, surveys at a point in time that you've created. So all we have to do is hit create new report, select the financial year that you'd like to run it for. Obviously noting that, at the start of each new financial year, we'll release the functionality to do the previous financial year. This is also where you'll be informed about how many essentially credits you have left for that particular time period. We're on a top plan, so we've got unlimited reports. I just hit continue, and that little loading function there is BGL passing the fund information through to our application. And a really important part to note there is accountantsGPS, we don't see, store, have access to any of that information. It's a purely private connection between yourself and BGL. So you can see here, most of the fund and member data will be pre-populated. Any information that's missing for some reason can be put in by yourself. There's really only one major section that doesn't have pre-fill. However, I'm happy to inform everybody that it is something that we're working on with BGL, that BGL will be exposing in their API, which is the investment strategy, which is fantastic. Another thing that's worth noting is you can override this information. So for whatever reason, if you believe the information is not correct, you can update it, and the calculation engine that produces our analysis will use the information from the survey. So let's walk through the survey and what you'll need to do. Most of this should all be pre-filled, like you can see here. BDBN information, Like I said, the investment strategy is pretty much the only section that won't be. You can see we've pulled through the actual asset allocation of the fund at that point in time. But any investment strategy analysis that you want to run will have to be put through manually. That being said, because it's pretty much the only section that you have to fill out yourself, we've made it non-mandatory. So if you just skip past this and hit next, it won't stop the report from producing. You just won't get an in-depth analysis on the asset allocation of the fund. But you can see here, it's also not too onerous to chuck in a few of those numbers. And then we'll just ask if that's a tailored strategy and whether it's been reviewed recently. All contribution information should come through here. If there's pensions, the pension amounts will come through, the cost of the fund, all this sort of information. And again, we can override this and say, no, actually, we've closed out that pension now. Sorry, here. And that's what the analysis will run on the basis of. You can see here all this property information has come through pre-filled straight from BGL, which is fantastic. And then the last thing we do is just asking whether or not the performance of the fund has been reviewed recently. So you can see once you've run one report, we find most of our users are able to get that done in a minute or 2 minutes maximum. It's pretty straightforward process, and from there we submit the responses. There's obviously a lot of other information coming from BGL that we don't need to be edited or approved. Those are financial statements that have been lodged, etc. The price of assets. That's all being calculated as we speak, so that the calculation engine, along with our decisioning engine, will do all of the heavy lifting. It will process the analysis, and then it will put together a personalized report, as you can see pretty quickly. We can download this as a PDF, or we can view it on screen as an interactive HTML. So we'll do the download, and you can see here we've got this 28-page report now. So I'll walk through each of the pages, and again, please feel free to pop questions in the Q&A section. And once I'm finished walking through, I'll be happy to address any that George wasn't able to get to. So these are the high-level areas that we'll cover off. You can see there's a bit of a mix there from investment strategy and benchmarking through to compliance topics. So we have a full introduction of how to use the report and what use cases there are with the different members and trustees of the fund. We start with a checklist where we use that traffic light system again. So you can see with this particular fund, we've identified quite a few things that are off track that need a bit of attention, and we'll go through that in more detail as we go through the analysis. And this is really the part where, based on feedback from other accountants and administrators, we introduced the concept of being able to rerun a report with updated information, so you can see these, or at least you can present back to the trustee members all of these items moving over to green as you're starting to implement, some fixes. So at first, we'll have a look at the investment strategy, have a quick discussion about that, and then we'll look at how it's tracking in terms of within the target range. So you can see here I've got the target range in blue that I entered, and then the actual asset allocation and whether that's fallen outside of that target range. And then what we'll do is we'll provide some commentary around this. So we can see there's quite a few there that have fallen outside of that target range. That means that we suggest speaking to your accountant in the first instance, and then perhaps engaging with an advisor, but definitely looking at either updating the investment strategy or realigning that asset allocation. We'll also do a cash analysis of the fund, depending on how much cash is in there. And all of these things change depending on the fund circumstances. So if they were drawing on a pension, for example, there'd be commentary around pension-related cash analysis in this component. We also calculate the performance of the fund, and we benchmark that against similar SMSFs and similar non-SMSFs. We'll call out the income for that particular period. We'll break down the performance by asset class too, so you can see what's doing well. And we also call out the top and bottom performing assets individually. We'll look at the cost to manage. So this is, we're doing an apples to apples as much as possible. And we're really only looking at the essential costs of the fund. So things like advice fees or insurance premiums, we're not trying to compare those. We're just saying, based on your accountancy fees, your admin fees, government fees, etc., how do you compare to similar SMSFs? You can see this fund is a little bit cheaper than the average, and we take that information directly from the ATO, who publish it each year, and same for non-SMSF funds, which we take from APRA, who also publish that each year. We'll also provide commentary on anything that we find. So Because fees are a little bit more expensive, I'm sure that you're all aware, doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad thing. It could be a good talking point to engage with the members or the trustees to say, well, that's because we've got, you know, all these different trusts and more complex structures in there that we spend time administering for you. We have a look at binding death nominations, so lapsing, non-lapsing, last review date. Again, just provide commentary for each of the members individually. We'll have a look at any member's eligibility for a recontribution strategy. Here, the 2 members of the fund are not eligible, so we provided commentary to that effect. If they were, their names would be listed here, and we would explain, you know, that we're not necessarily recommending to do a recontribution strategy, but that you are eligible for one. So if you'd like to speak to your accountant about getting advice, you know, please do so. And then we provide a case study so that we can exemplify the benefits of looking at a strategy like that. We have a look at the trustee structure, and again, we provide commentary based on whether we think that's set up as well as it could be. If not, again, this is something to talk to your accountant or administrator about updating. We'll have a look at contributions. So first, we're looking at catch-up confessional, and so we'll calculate this for the members. Again, you can see here we've got higher balances, so we're not actually eligible for those, which is important to call out as well. If they were, we would look back. We've got that data back to the 2018 financial year, or as long as the fund has been with BGL Simple Fund 360. We'll also look at downsizing contributions and the eligibility criteria. We'll have a look at the concessional contributions they're making and any capacity to increase that. We'll provide commentary around as well, being very careful that we're not necessarily saying you should, just that you do have the capacity to. And here's some modelling. If you were to take advantage of that, based on your current asset allocation, this is the average return we believe you'll get. If you were to increase those contributions, here's the difference it could make on your balance at retirement. And then we provide some commentary around how, like the assumptions that underpin that modelling. We provide some retirement planning projections based on what they're currently doing as well. So where they are now, where we believe they're tracking for. And then we'll also call out roughly what we think that would turn into as an income if they were to draw that down to the average life expectancy, and all the information, again, that we're relying on here. For each property that's in the fund, we'll provide a property review page, an individual page for each property. So we're looking at when it was last valued, you know, benchmarking the rental performance, the growth performance. If there's an LRBA, we'll have a look if there's, like, if it's getting a bit close to that LVR and it's something that they might need to address. And then that's the end of the analysis. From there, we've got some other resources that might be of interest to either yourself as an administrator or to the trustees and members. So we've got estate planning services that we can offer, as well as group insurance that can be offered to the SMSF. So that brings me to the end of the SMSF report itself. If I go back to the platform, that's obviously just the beginning of the journey. There's a number of other resources that we provide here to link you in with particular product providers that might help with, let's say, refinancing an LRBA. We also have a full resource center that you can access here. So if I click on Learn More, we've set this page up to provide you with any information you might be interested in. So if you'd like to listen to me talk about the report again, you can do so. We've got our onboarding pack, webinars we've done in the past, financial modelling, etc., so that you can see how everything works. But yeah, we have a range of other service providers here that we work with that are our partners that can help meet the needs of the fund that might have been identified in the analysis. So hopefully that gives you a good high-level walkthrough and understanding of the product itself. Now, to get started is pretty straightforward. We'll, of course, issue information post this session so that you can book in to have a chat to us or follow the steps yourself to sign up. But we simply go to the application website, enter in your details that you would like to create the account with. Just important, make sure the person who has the login details for your BGL Simple Fund 360 account is the person who is also in the room while you're signing up, as it's one of the first steps you'll be asked. So you can see here, I enter some basic details, connect BGL account, you'll be asked to log in. I'm already logged in. I hit authorize, and it's that simple. BGL Simple Fund 360 is now connected to accountantsGPS. From there, I go ahead and I'll receive a multi-factor authentication code to my email, which I can enter. I won't do it today. And then you'll be presented with the subscription plans, which again, you can have a look at depending on the number of funds that your organisation manages. There'll be different tiers that are more or less suitable. We also incorporate a free 30-day trial period, so you can sign up without committing any money towards it and have a play around and see if you like it. When you do sign up, you'll receive an email that looks like this, and it will give you all the instructions you need to be fully supported in setting up the integration. So schedule an onboarding meeting with our onboarding and training specialist. There's a quick form to fill out, of any information that we might need from you. And then all the steps on what to do, how to generate a report, how to get support from us, how to book in times with us will be available in that email as well. So hopefully that's a thorough enough run through. Before I pass back, George, are there any other points that you would like me to go over in the platform itself?
No, I don't think so. We've covered the different providers, yeah, that everyone's got access to. These are not, you're not obliged to use them, but they're there because they are the sort of the key types of services that any SMSF would be looking to use at some stage of their sort of growth and advice process if they need one, including things like, group insurance. For those members of an SMSF that don't have any insurance or don't have enough, there is a group insurance cover product on there with no medicals. So that's a fantastic service for individuals to take up fairly quickly. But no, I think that's about it at this stage.
Fantastic. Then I might stop sharing, and I'll see if there's questions that I can answer.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, George.
Okay. I've got a few more slides, but let's see if there's any questions at this point. I did answer a few. My slow typing wasn't too bad. The one thing that I did want to emphasize, because I got the question note. So basically, this is an SOA for a fund. It just confirming again that it is a factual report. It identifies every aspect of the fund that needs attention, including advice, and we can provide that advice service if the firm would like us to. Okay, let me just share my screen. I'm just going to go back to the presentation. There's a few more slides that I wanted to cover. Okay, so we've done that one. So this is a bit of a case study. So I wanted to look at the commercials because we get asked lots of times when we're at BGL RecTech days and other presentations. What does it cost? How do I what's the return on investment, George? And this is a really simple example. Obviously, if you're keen to have a closer look, we're quite happy to have a chat to you and run through the numbers in a lot more detail. But all I've assumed here is that an accounting practice has 50 funds, 50 eligible funds that are in accumulation. And to run the report, I've said that, okay, for someone in the practice, not the partner, it'll cost $150 per hour for that person to do any work. It takes them half an hour to run the report, review it, and as you saw Aaron do so, it doesn't take anywhere near 30 minutes, but I'm just using this as a simple example. And maybe have a chat to their supervisor or the partner in charge of the SMSF area. Now, once the report is prepared, reviewed, made sure it's okay, the partner in charge or the manager in charge, the accountant in charge will present the report to the client. And that'll take up their time. So I've estimated here it's $350 per hour, and we spend an hour with the trustee and member clients presenting the report. So that's a cost to the firm. What we recommend that you retail the report for is $500 plus GST in the first year. In subsequent years, when the fund has been reviewed, there may not be as much work, so it's probably more of a review service. And that price, I would suggest that you would price the report at $250 per fund for existing funds. So if we say that we charge the client $500 for the report, the $350, this excludes GST, $350 for the hour. And as you saw all those ancillary financial services available on the platform, whether it's through us or your own providers, you're not obliged to use our services. If you've got your own providers for LRBAs, insurances, financial advice, and so on, by all means, use those partners of yours, because I'm sure there's some form of remuneration sharing. I've just estimated that per fund, you might generate $500 that comes to you. By the way, if you use our providers, for any revenue that we generate from those services, we rebate 80% of that revenue back to you. And the other 20% goes to charity. So there's a an Australian-based charity and an international charity that we support, and the balance of the 20% goes to those two organisations. So in this case, the total amount less expenses, the net position per report is $925, and if you've got 50 reports, that's $46,250, less the fee for the subscription plan. Now, I've used the enterprise plan, which is the one Aaron demonstrated to you. In this case, we do offer a month free, but because of the webinar that we're running today, the participation at RegTech, what we're offering is a 20% reduction in the fee for all members. So it's a pretty good deal. You get that for life, basically. We're not going to increase it, but you get it for life. So it's just over $12,000. You don't have to be an Einstein to do the math here. The math is pretty straightforward. So it's 33 grand plus in terms of revenue back to the firm in the first year. In subsequent years, you probably break even because you reduce the fee on the report, but the point is that you're still providing a value-add service. And I know, given the valuations of SMSF books, that if you've got a program in place with these types of revenue models, that the revenue per SMSF is treated much higher in terms of valuation than a typical individual tax return client. Also remember that as part of the accountant's GPS offering, the Money GPS digital advice platform is included as part of the subscription fee. So that would cost you up to $890 a month, which you'll get at no cost. So you get both Accountants GPS and you have access to Money GPS to deliver digital advice to your clients, which we'll have a chat about briefly in a minute. But from an SMSF perspective, you're delivering a much valued service with a report and a service where you don't have to be licensed. And that's one of the critical aspects of this whole offering. Apart from reviewing the SMSF, as Aaron showed you, in a very strategic way, you don't have to be licensed to deliver this report. It's part of the overall service because it's factual in nature. So what I might do, are there any questions at that point you're answering, Aaron, or have we got any up there?
Yeah, there's a couple of questions I've answered in here.
Okay, all right.
One, again, probably worth reiterating, there was a question regarding whether we would have access to BGL's database and whether there would be marketing activities that we would undertake to any clients. And it's a definite no, right? So one, we definitely don't have access to BGL's database. And secondly, any authorization you make between BGL and the application is a private and secure connection. So we don't actually see any of your clients' information and we just physically do not have access to it because of the security protocols that we put in place.
Yeah.
There was another question regarding one-off report pricing. Look, we don't have just a pay-as-you-go model at the moment. It is something that we're looking into for the new year. Our lowest tier, however, is pretty cheap per month, and it gives you 3 reports a month, and you can then purchase additional reports at $180 each. But the pay-as-you-go model is something we're looking into.
Yep. And there is, as Aaron said, there is a 1-month free trial anyway.
Yeah.
Which, so there's no loss there. You can sort of just try it out and see how you go. Now, what I'm going to do is just talk a little bit about Money GPS for a few minutes and then finish off with the sort of next steps and, call to action that I'd like everyone to take if they'd like to. So we talked about advice and we talked about the services through Accountants GPS, which includes SMSF advice if you need that service. And I know a lot of accountants look at that. From your client's perspective, we've talked about your SMSF clients, but very briefly, because Money GPS is part of the Accountants GPS service, I do want to talk about it for 5 minutes because you'll actually get access to this without actually paying for it because it's part of Accountants GPS. So we deliver affordable personal advice. And what that means is that we deliver advice under our AFSL. So you don't have to hold an AFSL for your clients to receive affordable advice, personal advice. We do it through digital means. That way they can take a self-led journey using our technology. They can meet with our GPS coach, who are salaried people, to help them through the process. If you've got internal advisors, this actually helps you in your advisory business because we work with a number of firms that have internal financial planning practices. The topics we cover are superannuation, investment, retirement, and soon to be insurance. we cover both strategy and product recommendations. The critical point about this is that, and I know because we've spoken to many accounting practices over the years, including our current subscribing partners, about 80 to 90% of their individual clients cannot afford financial advice. So you're doing them a service, and I'm sure they'd like to take up this service with their accountant rather than anybody else in having access to affordable advice, as well as your SMSF clients doing the same thing in terms of the guidance you provide them with the SMSF Check-Up Report. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide. We have a number of what we call check-up reports for people at various ages of their lives in terms of the stages and whether they're looking at retiring or just building up wealth. And they're free reports. So they analyze someone's situation. They will determine the types of products and services and advice they need. We have a range of advice topics across superannuation, retirement income, savings, soon to be insurance, property, and always access to a human salaried staff. If you look on the right-hand side, we have a 79% completion rate on these documents, which is quite high for the money checkup. The SOAs, or statements of advice, run between 10 and 20 pages, not 80 or 100 or 120 pages, and they're priced at between $90 and $200. So very affordable for individuals. Integrations that we're looking to complete this side of Christmas and in the first quarter next year include open banking and Xero and Xplan, the financial planning software. And the other thing that we firmly believe in is education, and included in all of these reports and advice documents is an education aspect to it. We have 40 video style modules on the platform as well. So we're providing a full service for our accounting subscribers who want to provide affordable advice to their clients. In terms of our staff, we have GPS coaches that can help you. They don't give personal advice, it's general advice, but they're there to help the client along the way, to validate their responses, to answer any questions, and to help them to the next stage of the process. And again, it's not an expensive exercise for clients to use them at, up to $100 per hour, including implementation. Now, this is a really busy slide because we've been very busy building all these things. There's lots of advice modules, as you can see on the left-hand side. The ones in white are currently either being designed or getting ready for production. So a lot of advice capability, a lot of individual factual reports that we provide users that may lead to advice, including retirement checkups. Our wellness program, these are all the additional financial services that we offer to people through Money GPS. And that allows you to, in fact, if you've got partnerships with people that provide insurance or personal advice or lending, we can remove our default providers because we've got a number of groups on the platform and replace them with your services. So we can customize the platform and badge and white label the platform for your practice. So it can be white labeled, and then all the education modules on the right-hand side. So fairly comprehensive service. So in terms of the overall proposition, the one thing that I learned when I was working with my 40, I think it was 7 practices licensed to me in my previous business, was that everyone's busy. So if we said, okay, implement this in your practice, I know what the feedback that I'd receive from accounting practices that, they'd say, well, George, how are we going to do this? We're already busy doing compliance work. We don't know how to implement, perhaps. We don't have the resources. The reason we've built Money GPS and Accountants GPS is really to provide a full turnkey operation for accounting practices, employers, and advisors. And in this instance, we're talking about Accountants GPS. So, you don't need a license to offer this service because it's factual in terms of the SMSF report that's issued. The onboarding program is maximum 1 hour, and we have specialists that actually do that for you. We have our GPS coach that can work with you in the practice and help you from an operational point of view. We provide all the marketing to launch the service to your SMSF clients, which you can tailor if you like. You've got a range of specialist service providers you can use at no obligation. And from a subscription point of view, you can see the fees there. I'll talk more about the fees in the sort of last slide in terms of the next steps. The fees include the Money GPS platform. So that's a significant saving of $10,000. You retain the revenue on your reports. So we don't share in any revenue that you charge for a SMSF checkup. If you use any of your internal services or external providers, you retain that revenue as well. We don't want any share of that. In fact, if you use any of our service providers, we provide 80% rebate of all revenue that we earn. 20% goes to a couple of charities. So we retain no commissions. To subscribe, it's 3 easy steps. Jump onto the platform via your BGL Simple Fund 360 login. Once you've done that, you receive a 6-digit verification code. At that point, you just follow the process and select the plan that you'd like to subscribe to. When that's done, as Aaron showed you, you'll receive some communication for a meeting with one of our onboarding and training specialists, and that'll be the start of onboarding, maximum 1 hour. The rest, we actually do the majority of the rest, so there's minimal impact on your operational time in the house. And to get started, we normally offer a 1-month free trial. I've had a couple of accountants last week say, "Oh, but we're coming close to Christmas. What shall we do?" So, well, that's fine. I mean, you know, we're here to provide a service. I understand from a practical point of view. What we're saying is, well, if you subscribe over the next sort of 6 weeks, we'll provide a 2-month free trial period with a 20% fee reduction for life. There's a reduction in your subscription fee for accountantsGPS. It incorporates MoneyGPS. You'll meet with our onboarding specialists. We'll guide you through the process. So there's no concern about how long is this going to take, you know, what's it going to cost and so on. It's quite an easy process. Now, the thing that I'd recommend you do is call the 1300 number to speak to our GPS coaches. Ask the questions before you do anything. There's the link to the online meeting. You can actually organize I think it's a 15-20 minute meeting with one of our coaches. Viv, who is the main one, will receive that email. You can contact me if you like, but Viv will probably be more helpful than I will be, as Aaron was today in the demo. So that's the formal part of the presentation over. What I'd like to do is really stop sharing, because we've been talking for a while and demoing for a while, Lilli, and open the floor to any more questions or someone wants to chat. Thank you.